Hello, and thanks for watching or listening to episode 33 of VIP Boxing's Bell to Bell podcast. You can either watch us on YouTube, download us on Spotify, iTunes, and have a listen on the way to work. I'm Steve Lillis. With me, my regular co-host up the road in Oldham, Mr. John Evans, who's showing off a touch of white on his arms where he's been caught in the Oldham sunshine today. Hope you're good, John, and not too sunburnt.
I'm good, Steve. It's been tropical, hasn't it, in Oldham this week?
Hey, I've been here. I've been up this way. Was it 30 years? I only got dry yesterday. That's how good it's been. And our special guest this week, a guy who's even more tanned. He doesn't drink, so it's not a boozy face. This is pure the sun in West London, and I don't know, maybe he's been at Brentford's promotion parties. He lives up the road. Former WBO Super Featherweight champion and an absolutely brilliant commentator who we hear his dulcet tones on Sky Sports, MTK's channel. Whoever pays him, actually, he's a gun for hire. Barry Jones. Hope you're good, Barry, and thanks for coming on, mate, on this bank holiday when we're recording this.
That's all right, mate. I've been to a beach on a river. Figure that out.
Hold on. I'll tell you what, there's been somewhere in London that I reckon is full of Shoreditch beards, thinking there's somewhere, and you've rocked up and spoilt the occasion. Although your missus and kids didn't, you did.
Yes, I've been out in the sun all day with the kids. Yes, I'm.
Where was the beach?
It's on a pond. It is. It's in Farnham.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's called Frensham Pond. So it's brilliant. So it's just like a pond. So it's like you've got ducks there and swans, but they also got like a man-made beach, which is fantastic. So yeah.
Imagine that where we're living, John. Ashton and Oldham, a man-made beach. It would be wrecked, wouldn't it, in the day? Yeah. You'd be going around there now. There'll be canisters, tins of dark fruits, wouldn't there? There'll be spliffs everywhere. The police would have closed it down within 2 hours of opening.
Yeah, some empty cans of strong brew floating in the Rochdale Canal. Yeah.
When I grew up, they would have been nicking our sand and taking it home. I'd have a driveway. Some sand there for the.
Right, all right. Then we'll get started. You'll get started. Round one. Are you ready, John? But you know what happens, Barry, with a bell after 3 minutes. Round one. Fire away, John.
Yeah, well, we've been yapping, haven't we? So let me just get the timer started. Right.
Round one starts now.
Right. Well, maybe it's because everybody these days got to get their opinion heard, so they come out with extreme views, or maybe it's because the fighters don't fight as often as they should, so everything's magnified. But Devin Haney was the latest victim of this weekend, where Devin Haney's crime was getting stunned by a world-class fighter in Jorge Linares. So what? But according to the internet, that now means he's overrated. He's never going to do anything. He's the worst of these four lightweights. There's no point in him really fighting any of them because he'll just get beat. It seems like fans these days, they want the fighters to take step-ups, but unless they then put in a punch-perfect performance, don't make a mistake, and ideally stop the guy, then they're overrated completely. Now, you might think Haney hasn't got the chin to beat Tank Davis. You might think that Ryan Garcia hasn't got the chin to stand up to Teofimo Lopez. But that's why we have the fights. We fight the fights to find out. I thought Haney against Linares was a good fight. Haney improved. We got to see some flashes of Linares' brilliance, and we move on. And there's no more to it than that. I'm getting fed up of people being written off or hyped up all on the back of the latest performance.
Do you know what? I said the same thing about Buatsi in his fight before, the not the last one, prior to that, but he had an undefeated guy. And I said, he looked good, I thought, and people, he didn't look great. But the test is not, when you have it, like you said, John, I agree, the test is not there to make you look good. The test is there to test certain parts of your game, which we haven't seen. Or frailties that might there, because like you said, you have to know it. How many fighters we've seen, especially in the modern years, get to world level without having any tests, because you can engineer your way through intercontinental routes and WBO European routes or whatever to get to world number one. And then when you get to that level, you're found wanted. And of course you are. It's not your fault, because you've never been in a situation where someone can take your power, or you can't take their power, or you get outboxed when you've never been outboxed before. You have to account for these things on your way up. So I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, because that's a real bugbear of mine.
mean, I think it's always been there with fighters. I go back to things like, I'm going back many moons. I remember, the newspapers the next day on the Monday, people after that, before the social media. I'm going back to when Buster Drayton beat Mark Kaler, and the guy will, yes, you're too young to remember, both of you, I think, when Kaler fought Drayton. Kaler was the golden boy of London
Yeah, we know
boxing
he
in
is,
the
yeah.
80s. He got beat, and I remember next day, going for a drink the next day. That Kaler always knew he couldn't fight. It just stands out. There's an example. I was trying to think of a comparison back then, whereas you got to look at who he lost to. Buster Drayton ain't a bad fella to lose to in 8 rounds. Well, I want to go back to that 1 week. Round 2, over to you, Barry.
Rematch clauses. I think they're a waste of space. I hate them. I don't think they should be allowed. And I love a rematch as good as more than anyone, as much as anyone, I should say. If it's warranted. But these rematch clauses, especially at world level, so you're taking a risk. Every fight's a risk, but always at a real risk when you're signing up to 2 fights. So regardless of the result, how badly you get beat is irrelevant, because you're going to fight each other again to maybe make it right. Where's the fear factor in your whole career if that's what happens? And also, you're holding up. It's really to do with Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder deserves his shot. If he signed a contract, then and I'm going to issue with him fighting Fury, because that's what should have happened. But look what it's done now. It's held up a fight that the whole world wanted to see. It's holding up, Usyk's career, possibly Joe Joyce's. All the guys that it trickles down. It holds everyone's career because they've signed up to 3 fights, which is ridiculous, which can drag on to 2-3 years in this modern era of boxing. So for me, rematch clauses shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be allowed.
You look at them, and what first thing when you said you were coming at that, first thing I thought of was the traffic jams that it causes in whatever division. But I was then thinking of fights where there's been a rematch because someone had a clause. And I'm thinking, I wonder where Carl Frampton's career might have gone if he hadn't been forced into that rematch. That was because of the contract, the rematch against Leo Santa Cruz. And I'm beginning to think where careers may have gone through that. Where you think, Lopez Lomachenko, there's no rematch. And that's what it should be. White Povetkin, ridiculous having that rematch, because in that rematch, that White knocking out, an ancient Povetkin in the rematch hasn't furthered White's career anywhere. He could have found another way and furthered his career, I think. The only way he's going to get a shot now is if they elbow Usyk out the way and he makes a voluntary again. But it didn't further his career at all.
No, I think rematches form naturally, don't they?
Yeah.
But even if you look back at some of the famous trilogies we've had, Pereira Morales wasn't an immediate rematch. It was 2 years down the line, wasn't it? Off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And then there was another one after that. But rivalries and great fights bring rematches. But it just seems like these days, maybe it's stemming back to what I said in my first topic. Maybe it's all this fear of losing and fear of what people say just gets these clauses inserted in the initial contract straight away.
Well, it's promoters and managers and fighters as well. But everyone's involved. And TV companies, they get a guaranteed next fight. The promoter gets a guarantee. You can if that whatever, especially heavyweight division. No matter how the first fight was, it's a heavyweight division, so they're pay-per-view stars. You can package it any way you want to, and people will tune in to watch it. I understand that.
Right. Round 3. I mean, it's funny. This they're totally different topics to what you brought on, but it shows. Your topic there, Barry, showed the wild west that boxing is with these rematch clauses, just writing on their laws. Mine's what's a dope, and it's Jean Pascal once again. A fighter, heavy. He's absolutely failed, so much. Does a claim, 3 steroid tests he's failed. Claims he had no idea. He sacked his strength and conditioning coach. Blah, 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 blah. But whenever this happens, especially when there's a really serious violation, not someone taking, over-the-counter weight loss stuff. I'm on about a serious violation. I'm like, I think I start suspecting every fighter. And people say to me, "Oh, it won't happen in Britain," but it will be happening in Britain. And I think now, since that, I've been thinking a lot about it since the Pascal news emerged, and I'm thinking, well, how many? Look at I'm going to look at every fighter who's like in their late 30s who's having a career resurrection and suspect them all. And it's so harsh on some of them. And I just, every time we get one of these bad doping things, nothing's ever seriously done about it. And I look at like Jarrell Miller. He's, you know, okay, he can't fight till next January or ever, but he's still earning money out of boxing, being in camp with Bogdan Danu ahead of Dubois. Boxing has got to come together. You know, it's not going to, but there must be a way of policing this, that these guys, when it says you're banned from boxing, like Danu, you're banned. You can't go in a camp and earn from the money. It's almost like a footballer getting banned for a doping regulation and going to Latvia and coaching or something.
The problem is there's a rule for the smaller fighters and another rule for the bigger fighters who can afford to sue these testing companies, and then the companies will pull out because they can't afford it. They're independent companies. They can't afford to go up against a multi-millionaire sportsman who got enough money to take it to court to burn. So they back up on him. But that's the problem. You need a big star who's been caught to be punished properly. Not 6 months or 3 month ban when he's not even fighting. You know, that doesn't help him. No, they fight every 6 months anyway. So that 6 month ban just means he just trains for 6 months and then announces his fight like a month later on. That's all that happens. So until that happens, it'll continue to go on. And these poor strength and conditioning coaches, they're either vile human beings who are coercing these innocent boxers who are not paranoid. No, I don't know any boxers not paranoid to just take this and trust me, open up. Or they're just literally being blamed for every misrepresentation or every mistake that's made. They're getting the blame for it.
These guys,
they're scapegoats. They're scapegoats. That's what I'm trying to say. They sound like they're scapegoats for anything that you do.
I always think boxers are old enough to know the difference between right and wrong. I don't know your opinion. Oh, sorry, John, I didn't bring you in there. Sorry.
Don't worry about it. Right, it was good to see Chantelle Cameron fighting this weekend. I've long said that the women's boxing's done great over the last 2 years, but the thing that will take it to another level is when the girls start coming along and stopping people in these high-profile fights. You know, they're all entertaining to watch, but you're pretty much guaranteed 10 rounds at the minute, aren't you? I just wonder if Chantelle might be that girl. Chantelle was stopping people like Vivian Obernorth and stuff like that a couple of years ago when she was Wham Bam Cameron fighting on Channel 5. You know, she's tightened up a bit now. She's a little bit more... what's the word? A little bit more polished, maybe, but she's still really heavy-handed. She was mixing with the podium squad before London 2012, so she's been mixing with world-class fighters for 9 years now. She's in with top fighters every single day. She's sparring with like Akib Fiaz and Mark Leach. I just wonder if when Chantelle gets her opportunity at lightweight, she might be the girl who's heavy-handed enough and aggressive enough to start finishing some of these fights. And the first girl that does that is going to really go on to another level, I think.
Yeah, well, the fight for her, obviously, is Katie Taylor. There's so much in that for them. You know, Chantelle needs that to, you know, that Chantelle wins that will take her into the mainstream. And it's Chantelle, she WBC super lightweight. And that's also Katie's chance if she went up to become a 2-weight world champion. So I think that's the fight that she needs. And imagine if she stopped her.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it needs a super fight. It had one super fight, obviously, with Carissa Shields and Christina Hammer. But we did that fight, Stephen. If you remember, Steve. But it was an awful fight. It was really awful. It should have been a cracking fight, and it was just a stinker to watch. And it didn't do women's boxing any favors. But you find it hard to believe that Chantelle Cameron and Katie Taylor couldn't be anything but a great fight. Because Taylor is not as skillful as she was. Let's be honest. She's not the same fighter she was a few years back, but she's still brilliant. And Chantelle Cameron, you can see Jamie Moore actually in the corner telling her to calm down. Actually, she's so, like you said, John, she's so aggressively minded. So wants to just get the job done. He was actually having to pull her back a bit to keep your shape, keep working behind the jab. Don't he's worrying about gassing out. So yeah, I think she might be the one that helps to elevate the sport. But it's getting better all the time. The quality is getting better, and that's the important part.
And what it needs now, I think that early stoppage on Saturday, it saved the girl, but it denied Chantelle that clean finish.
Yeah, it was awful, wasn't it?
The first girl that comes along and starts really finishing girls, it's going to take the sport to another level. I just think Chantelle might just be the one. You know, she's got fight-ending power and she's got that fight-ending mindset, and I think that might just make her stand out a little bit.
I still think until then, I do think, you know, as I said before, and they need this rivalries. They need these, you know, the rivalries were. Oh, anyway, right. You're gonna tell me off. Right, over to you, Barry. Your final topic.
My favorite topic at the minute is I'm actually in love with the man. I really am. Josh Taylor.
Yeah.
And I think this is how you bring a world-class amateur on. For me, I think he's been managed just impeccably, and you have to give the McGuigans their credit for that.
Yeah.
I think he's from day dot. He's just been managed perfectly. His second fight, he's in a guy who only lost 5 out of 20 odd, whatever it was, and the 22 fights. So that was a great fight, a learning fight for him. The guy wasn't great, but the guy goes in with ambition, you know, and that's a big step. That's mentally, that's a hard fight for you. And then he has his 7 fights against Dave Ryan, who's obviously was a former Commonwealth champion, a good fight in his own right. 10th fight against O'Hara Davis, who at the time was the biggest bully in boxing and was knocking everyone out. And the way he beat him was so impressive that he didn't outbox him, which he could have. He went right on his chest and beat him up and made him quit. And then you just think, wow, they're giving this kid the right test, real like fights where he can come unstuck, dramatically come unstuck, but having the confidence in knowing that he's good enough to push him, and then continue from there. Miguel Vasquez, Victor Postel, and then they went on. It just Ryan Martin looks like an easy touch for him now, but at that time, Ryan Martin was big news and defeated in 20 odd fights and was going to be a big thing. And I was there that night in Glasgow. I was working for the broadcasters, and he was just. It was like Ryan Martin just froze. He was scared of Taylor. And you can understand that because you can't outbox him, you can't outfight him, and you can't be as dirty as he is naturally. So I think the way he's been brought on is why he is one of the most top 2 or 3 complete fighters in the world of boxing. Not the best in different pockets of what you do. The jab, you might be the better than someone else's jab, but as a complete fighter, Canelo's the most complete fighter on the planet. Josh Taylor might be the second for me. I think, but that's because that proper apprenticeship he's had, a real world-class apprenticeship that we haven't seen, that we used to go on about, you know, Stephen, in the early 90s and the late 80s and the 80s. You know, his apprenticeship would be rivaled to any fighters. I mean, any fighters. That's it. That's Taylor. I love you.
Do you think he's arguably apart from Canelo, the most difficult to beat? Because like you just said, Barry, how do you go about it? You know, if you try and box him, well, he'll switch side. Well, he's southpaw, he's rangy, he's tall, he can box it. If you want to fight him, he loves a fight. Like Steve said many a time, Josh loves a fight. Mate. He's got a chin, he can punch, he's spiteful. I love him.
I'll tell you what, I mean, you said exactly what I was going to say at the start of your speaking there, Barry, especially, you know, the Dave Ryan fight. I think it was like 6 or 7. You know, Dave Ryan, that was the only time he was properly stopped. He was stopped in his previous fight, but it was a back injury. You know, them sort of things in your 6th fight, that's invaluable with Dave Ryan after 6 fights. We've seen prospects fight Dave Ryan 15, 16 fights in and lose. That's the sort of stuff that's invaluable. Oh, right.
You went way over.
Round 6, Dud or Dynamite. I just want to get you guys' opinions on which way you think Daniel Dubois' career could go now. I'm sort of in the balance where it can go. What I will say, I'm impressed that he's decided to stay on course for this fight Saturday night, having only had, you know, it must have been a week of proper training with Shane McGuigan before you know, tapering down. That tells me that, you know, he does want this fight. He does want to win, but I think Daniel Dubois' career can still be saved, but there's only one person can save it. It's not a trainer, it's not a manager, it's not a matchmaker, it's not a promoter. It's only him that can save it by wanting it enough.
Yeah, I sort of think you're right. I think it's an interesting one because, you know, he's got whatever you think about how his last fight went about, that when he got beat, whether he quit, whether he was right or wrong to quit. And if you use the story that the reason he quit, he saved his career, then that's a load of bollocks to me, because as much as he might have done that, you don't think like that in the ring. You cannot think like that in the ring. Now, if the pain was too much to bear, that's fair enough. I got no argument with that. We all got our own thresholds, and it is what it is. You know, if you can't take it, I'm not saying I could, you know, but saying if you can't, your pain's your pain. Same with Billy Joe. Same with I got stopped. You get to your limit, and you got to tap out. That's just how life is. But all it's like I say, Mike, if he's going through the thing, I say my career, that's rubbish. And and same with the people using that, he did the sensible thing. Well, don't box if you're going to be that sensible, because it's not a sensible sport to be in. Let's be honest about it. But that's the cross he's got to bear. That's going to be with him for a while. How he is mentally with that will be when he gets first big heavy shot he gets hit with, or if he starts to gas in a fight, that will be interesting again. But I think he's still got lots of potential. He's still a good fighter. He wasn't getting battered by Joe Joyce. Let's be honest. No, I thought Joe Joyce was winning the fight, to be fair, by a few rounds, but he was in it. So it depends how he goes about. I think that he's showing ambition to take a fight against a guy who's on paper looks decent. But my worry is, though, that he gets him to this interim world title, which is absolutely farcical, propels him too far up too quick. Now, if this was 1991, he'd be fighting 16 more people who no one ever seen, and knocking them all over him just to build his confidence back. And I think maybe that is probably needed again for me. But listen, I admire him for his moxie to want to go in there and prove the world that he's got plenty of ball.
Yeah, I was spent a bit of time with Daniel recently, and he didn't want a step back. He wanted this, and he wants to just carry on. But I agree with you, Barry. I think he would have been better. I don't know about better served because we've not seen Dinu yet, but maybe first fight with a new trainer after all the messing around he's had for the last 6 weeks with different trainers, might have just been wise to either postpone this one for a little bit or switch the opponent and give him someone to knock over, because not even Daniel knows how he's going to react the first time he takes a right hand on the eye. I was talking to him about the fight and when he damaged his eye, and he said at the same time he was thinking about the pain, he was thinking about the damage he was doing to his eye for the future, and he was thinking about losing the fight. He wasn't thinking about protecting himself going forward. He said at some point the pain got too much and I couldn't carry on.
That's it.
That's what you were saying.
He's not thinking about, like, if he says, anyone says, I was thinking about, about the future, or no, I was going to protect my. Am I going to lose my eyesight? You just don't, because you're in a fight. You can't think about it. You just can't. I know what it's like. My rib was hanging out I don't think it was worse than his. The pain, obviously, it was hanging outside my cartridge. I was panicking. I didn't know what was going on. But you're so immersed in the pain that it's almost numbing. Do you know what I mean? It's almost a numbing. It hurts and but it's almost numbing. But I also know that when I was on the ropes, I could hear my dad. I was right in my corner, actually. I could hear my dad saying, "I'm throwing the towel in," and I never threw any punches back. Yeah. So I quit. I didn't quit. I got saved on my corner, but I quit because I'm not a quitter, and I got all I got was applause for being how brave I was. But I quit. I know I did. I had nothing left. I tried. I got up 6 times. I proved. I think I proved in a bottle. I think, but I mean, at that particular point, I had nothing left. I tried my hardest. I had nothing. I was looking for sledgehammers in my pockets. I couldn't find anything to keep him off me. Do you know what I mean? To these 2 little flimsy fists, I couldn't punch holes in a wet paper bag. I just couldn't do it. And then when I heard that, my face is a mess. My head's doubled in size, and my ribs. And that was it. And I didn't go, I've had enough. But if there was anything left in me, I would have rallied back and done something. Hold him, throw him on the floor, anything. I would have done anything. And I had nothing left to give. And that's what happened to Billy Joe, and that's what happened to Daniel. It's quite different, but sort of like that. The pain was too much. He took the knee.
Well, I was quite pleased when he said that, because he was dead honest. He said at some point I couldn't carry on. But like I said, who knows what's going to happen? New trainer, having spent a lot of time with Jimmy Tibbs, leaving Martin Bowers, doing lots of rounds with Chisora. All of a sudden, he's with Shane McGuigan, sparring Lawrence Okoli. I just hope it's not all come around too much at a too high a level, because I still think there's plenty there for Dubois, plenty to build on. I hope it's
I hope so. And there was also, I'm not going to say, and there was another trainer he did some work with as well. So there's been a lot of chaos around him. I just hope that, I hope he delivers this week, because, he was flying high, and you can still see that BT had got the belief in him. I mean, I didn't watch it the other night, the Champions League final, but I'm told there was even blurb in his fight during that, which tells you that you got a broadcaster still carrying a flag, and you wonder if he'd beaten Joe Joyce, how the landscape would be looking right now for him. It's, I know it's ifs and buts, and if my auntie had balls, he should be my uncle. But just say it got to the end of that fight. It was a close
you can't
fight,
listen. You can't say that anymore because that's actually physically possible now.
Yeah.
That your auntie could have balls and be an uncle. You know what I mean? It takes a while, and I think you got to go through a massive process.
Right. I think with that, that's the one everyone has been listening. They've had a little bit of education off Barry at the end. Son, Barry. Barry, thanks for joining us. Hope we can get you on in a couple of months again, 2 or 3 months time. We like to get you on here.
Whenever you want me, boys. You know that. Like,
every time I see, I do miss those Saturday nights in the Box Nation studio, and I think
Well, the wages or the company.
The wages.
Tell me about
the wages and being nervous as hell when Buncey come rolling about 5-2 usually.
Those who can't remember that with Buncey, like listen, we love Buncey the bits, and me and you more than most. But he'd come in and he'd go, "But competition tonight." I'd be like, "Yeah, right. We're going to do the best jab thrown in the 6th round in the 60s. It'd be a real obscure thing, and they'll love it. But they'll love it, the viewers, and they did. They lived it. But I'm thinking, what can you tell me this like 6 o'clock in the afternoon? No, we're on 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. We're on air now in like 10 seconds, and I'm like on my iPad and like panicking and jabs in the 6th round. I don't know what to. It would just be so like dramatically. Then I'd be sulking, sat there like this, sulking for ages, but. We say it every time we're on here, don't we? Like,
yeah,
the best time.
John said it last time. John had good times, I think, when he did the show there, didn't you, John?
Yeah,
I used to love it.
Yeah. Even that green room, we clashed with your show and our show at some point, especially the boxing hour and your show, John. We would clash, at times, and meet almost every week, wouldn't we? We saw like ships passing in the night, and it was just a different gear. And I think it would have been with the lockdown, that channel would have thrived.
Yeah, it would have done. Yeah, especially me and you talking your stuff and putting me right, Barry, of course. But as always,
I don't remember it quite like that.
Yeah, brilliant to see.
Like that.
You know what? I'm gonna have to go. I've got about a minute on this now. I think 2 minutes. I can't see about my readers on. But Barry, thanks for coming on, mate. I love it. I don't see enough of you, mate, these days. And it was. I was made up. I didn't know. I was made up when you was on Sky the other week. I generally was for you. I was absolutely chuffed.
I'm doing the Mayweather Logan fight on the weekend. Quality fight.
I'm going to buy it now.
Well, Barry, we've got 20 seconds left. Give it the hard sell for Sky. Go on. How would you sell this fight?
Barry, have a great night at Sky on Saturday. Or is it Saturday or Sunday to fight, whenever it is?
Yeah, it's Sunday.
Have a brilliant night, and I made up you're doing that as well, Barry. That's now a great fight. Tune into Sky, Paul versus Mayweather with Barry Jones. You got to buy it, and John, you got to buy it as well.
I've got a fire stick, Steve.
I'll see you later, fellas.
Good night, boys.
Thanks, everyone.
For all boxing info, news, and latest interviews, amateur and pro across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.